All right, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the new intro that I made, playing ad nauseum at you right now. It's just basically a little ditty that keeps looping. So we're gonna just slowly draw the volume down on that. Cool. That's the first time we've used that. Maybe I'll make a slightly different version of it or something down the line. Nat is joining me. I think she's coming up right now, actually. Oh, there she goes. You walked through the complicated way. That was the easy way. All right. Well, welcome to the Labor Day show. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about labor, but there's actually a pretty funny amount of stuff that I am going to go through as well. First thing, hey, snuggling up next to me. Should I move over a little bit more? Okay. There we go. Okay, so what do we have here to start with? Okay, so we're going to start off with something on a little bit of the fun side. Okay, so this is this is Jordan Peterson. I don't know what podcast this is from, but this is I get the feeling they're trying to go like this host that they got is trying to be some sort of I don't know, conservative Wayne's World kind of dude. That's the impression I get. Look at this guy. Okay, here we'll put this up on the screen here. Yeah, it's like he's wearing the camo, he's got the mullet and the thing, and he's got that kind of attitude, but it's like this really nice, well furnished. Look at all the plants in the background. I like this though. Right, just off to the edge, you can see this ladder and unpainted wall that they didn't cover. I shouldn't be making fun of sets, right? But considering what we got going on here, but it's just really funny because there's a lot of money in this. You can tell by how nice the furniture is and everything, right? So the fact that off to the side it just seems a little funny to me. But yeah, I get this supposed to be two bros just gabbing it up on the couch kind of vibe, right? But what's really funny here is, and of course, continuing his descent into comic book villain look. He's got this patchwork suit. As opposed to the suit that he wore before. I wish I had a picture of it ready.
He's Don Cherrying.
Yeah, he's sort of Don Cherrying. Yeah. I guess classic conservative Canadian move. Trying to be fashionable, I guess, and stuff. And I have to admit, that suit is actually pretty good. The one though, where it's basically the suit jacket was a rendering of his goofy ass logo that he has on that he uses for everything.
Okay,
it was like that in suit form.
I just confirmed my suspicions that you're wondering about that set.
Yeah.
That set is actually from a artist space in Toronto, Coin8.
Oh, really?
An artist I follow on Instagram, Laura Hess.
So this is in Toronto.
Yeah, set
wow.
this up.
Okay.
This was supposed to be a trans and queer positive space for artists.
Cool.
And then
doesn't look like that right now.
Yeah. So there's actually a lot more going on behind this.
Wow. Okay,
yeah.
we're gonna have to do. I'll have to do a deeper dive because just this one clip just took me off guard because it's really funny. Where I fully admit I did not previously know before watching this clip what the term Rat King meant. Now, are you familiar with this term?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd never heard it before. When I hear Rat King, I just picture a rat, a cartoon rat with a crown or something like that, right? Apparently what it means is when rats get their tails caught in a knot, I guess whether somebody does it to them on purpose or it just happens
it's
because they're all piled together or...
Yeah, it's something that can happen if they're in a really constrictive space and then just amalgam of feces and stuff. They just get caught and stuck.
Yeah.
So it's not a regal position.
Yeah.
It's just kind of an accident of nature.
So what's really funny here is he goes in and he almost gets excited about to explain to our host what a rat king is, but what he explains in classic Jordan Peterson fashion, he's explaining something with excitement and a sense of authority, but he couldn't be more wrong. Yeah. Like he just has no idea. It's like him just perusing the Communist Manifesto the night before debating Zizek, because he had literally never read any communist literature before, but he was going to debate on the subject anyway. So this is kind of that. But and I'll show you, like he gets this explanation, and it's just like, where did he get that from? That's super bizarre. Well, we will show you right after. Some of you who have seen the movie he's lifting this from recognize it, I'm sure.
Are we rolling?
Nice rat.
Thanks, man. That's my nickname is the Rat King.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of... Do you have a nickname?
Do you know what a Rat King is?
Huh?
Do you know what a Rat King is?
So first of all, that's his nickname, and he doesn't know what it is. Okay.
Oh, my God. It's a terrible story. There is a Rat King. Well, this is the theory now. I don't know if people ever did this. So imagine your village is full of rats.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so now you go catch 10 rats.
Okay.
You throw them in a pit.
Okay.
Soon, there is one rat, because he gets all the other rats.
He's a champ?
Then you throw 10 more rats in there. Soon there's one rat. You do that 3 or 4 times. Then you take the remaining rat and you let him go. And soon there are no rats in the village.
Really?
No.
That's the theory.
Wow.
So that's the theory.
It was like the toughest of them all.
Yeah, and then he learns to eat rats.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then he learns to eat rats. Okay, so...
Okay, first off, I'm going to speak with some authority. As someone who has been watching the TV show Hoarders for a very long time,
yeah,
I can assure you that that is not what a rat king does. And having an excess of rats doesn't mean that they're just going to hunt each other. Like, that's...
Well, the thing is, he's surmising a Bond villain monologue, and he's surmising it badly.
Yeah,
like Javier Bardem's character in Skyfall gives this little villainous monologue, which is funny that he's like, in his like continuously coming off as like a comic book villain. He chooses to sort of half remember. This story from Skyfall, which is totally not what a Rat King is. So let's go over to the clip from Skyfall and hear what Javier Bardem says in it, and what Jordan Peterson, obviously sort of in his frazzled, benzo-addled brain, sort of half remembers and pieces together, and then like kind of speaks with some sense of authority on it. So here, let me get that.
Counts as theory, right?
Yeah. A villain's kind of what's supposed to be an intimidating villain speech. Is some sort of academic thought or theory now. So this is the scene from Skyfall, where and you can sort of see where Jordan Peterson was getting this from. And I like how he doesn't even reference like, oh, I heard this in a movie or something. Like, you could have said that, like, be humble in a way, you could say, I don't really know, but he's like, no, that's the theory. It's like, it's so weird. But anyway, this is the scene. Here, let's skip a few seconds of suspense here. It's only 2 minutes long, so okay. All right. The intimidating stare.
Hello, James.
Yeah,
well
there
done.
we go.
Do you like the island? My grandmother had an island. Nothing to boast of.
She was a rat.
We could walk around it in an hour.
Not yet.
Still, it was a paradise for us. One summer, we went for a visit and discovered the place had been infested with rats. They'd come on a fishing boat and gorged themselves on coconut. So how do you get rats off an island? My grandmother showed me. We buried an oil drum and changed the lid. Then we wired coconut to the lid as bait, and the rats would come for the coconut, and plunk, 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 they would fall into the drum. And after a month, we've trapped all the
Okay, I think an important thing is fell into a drum, as in
Yeah.
like this is a thing that rats couldn't just chew themselves out of or dig themselves out of as rats
Well,
would
and, like,
do.
this is a
Not like just a pit. If you're talking about like an earthy pit,
Yeah.
you know, rats can climb. They they could probably get
But
out of that.
This is also like a common pest control thing where you have a bucket with a stick that you put like peanut
Yeah,
butter on.
it's just like a trap,
Yeah,
a typical
it-
pest trap.
yeah, yeah.
But how he's explained it to, like, you know, to decimate and truly get rid of the
Yeah.
rat population.
Rats. But what did you do then? Throw the drum into the ocean? Burn it? No. You just leave it. And they begin to get hungry. And one by one, they start eating each other until there are only two left, the two survivors. And then what? Do you kill them? No. You take them and release them into the trees. But now they don't eat coconut anymore. Now they only eat rat.
Yeah, so that's
You have
not,
changed their nature.
yeah, that's not a thing.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's cute coming from like a weirdo villain,
Yeah.
you know, explaining this anecdote that his grandmother had about how to deal with rats. Not like, you know, this sort of public intellectual
Yeah.
who is supposed to know things.
Yeah,
right.
so
You know?
this is Jordan Peterson putting off secondhand tales from Nana. And she's probably like drunk on ouzo or something.
And, you know, speaking of tales from Nana, Jordan Peterson got a lot of important information from his grandmother. You should Google Jordan Peterson grandma story to find out more.
No.
I strongly encourage you do that to see what the deep mind of Jordan Peterson has to say about his grandma. Do you know the thing I'm
Sincerely,
referencing there?
I do. So I'm saying, do not
Yes,
do that.
Google that story. Read what he wrote
You're a
about grandma.
Yeah. So anyway, so is that the only clip that you have up from that particular interview?
If you're from that particular interview,
Okay,
yeah.
so
I
I
just
wanna
happened to see that
just-
because it's just like everybody was commenting like,
Yeah.
that's not what a rat king is. And a lot of people were just like, the grandma dream is the worst. It's like, it's one of those things where it's like, why would you just tell that to people willfully like it was interesting?
Yeah.
It's just a really bizarre, like, I think he was trying to make it analogous to something because he was talking about like dreams and stuff, but like how it related to the Graveyard conversation is just so bizarre.
Yeah.
Kind of like that's his whole thing, is just being a freaking weirdo.
Yeah. So yeah, so I want to roll back to that space.
Mhm.
So yeah, in Toronto, Coin 8, they're this artist studio space, and it's after they booked and allowed Jordan Peterson to interview in this space, which had touted itself as being like, you know, an LGBT safe space. When the artist Laura found out about this and found out that like her backdrop and stuff had been, you know, involved, she was just horrified, reached out to the owner and also mentioned to the owner that, you know, hey, I'm pretty upset about this being used for this kind of person. This makes it very much not a safe space, but then also, by the by, you haven't paid me yet for the rental of the studio setup. And yeah, so it turns out everything's coming out of the woodwork. That Coin 8, this is common for them to like not pay and to treat the community like really terribly.
Really?
So, yeah. So yeah. Anyway.
So Coin 8 is an artist collective that touts itself as being progressive, but when it comes down to it, those are just words.
Yeah.
And they're not paying for the space that they're using.
They're paying like, you know, the rental of the warehouse that they have.
Yeah.
But for like the artist installations.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Because then other
It's like a gallery.
kind of,
Okay.
but like other artists will come in and then use those installations for things like life drawing or, you know, musical events, etc.
Okay.
So
Wow.
someone's getting paid, but the artist creating the installations ain't it.
Yeah. So it's So I have not seen Skyfall. It was somebody else who pointed it out that this was a speech from Skyfall. What is it? I had the tweet right here. Yeah. David C. Bell.
Yeah.
Movie Hooligan is his @ So I guess it makes sense that Movie Hooligan would catch on to that reference.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like a bad half-remembered mismatch. Instead of an island, it's a village.
Yeah.
Instead of a drum, it's a pit.
Yeah.
Which I'm pretty sure rats can get out of pits.
Yeah.
Like that's a thing they can do.
Yeah, but I think it's hilarious because I will do this sort of storytelling, but I'll also preface it saying something to the effect of, I might have heard this or dreamt it. So
Yeah. And I have all the people like, yeah, was this something I heard in real life or like a scene in a movie or something I dreamt? You know, you can have these half-remembered things, but like, you know, preface it with that. Yeah.
Don't confidently say that.
This is the theory.
Yeah.
This is the theory.
Yeah.
Because you just sound like an idiot, which you did. He just sounds like a moron. Yeah. So that was kind of tickling. So that I just wanted to start off with that fun little story off the hop.
Yeah, delightful.
You know, he continues his weird descent into madness. So now we got this guy, Pierre Poilievre. I used to say it Poilievre because, like, I guess you would have like, I assumed the R was pronounced somehow. I don't.
Well,
I should be better at French by now, but
you transposed some letters.
Yeah, Poilievre.
Poilievre.
Yeah, but how you actually say it is Poilievre. So yeah, this is a campaign video from Poilievre, and his entire sense of like policy and theory is completely wrong, of course, because how he proposes to solve this crisis that Justin Trudeau did not cause this crisis. Let's put it, when it comes to the housing crisis, this is not something he caused. You could say he has adequately failed to do something about it as it's happened, but this is a function of the market for housing that we have created, right? We have incentivized these, investment groups and private landlord owners to invest in these properties, buy them up, and then rent them out at jacked out prices. And it closes the market to people who would legitimately just like to buy and live in a home. And it jacks up the overall cost for them because now you're paying somebody else's mortgage, then some. Yeah. Right. And so anyway, let's get to what he has to say here and how he sets it up.
While you're living in a 400 square foot apartment or trapped in your parents' basements, despite the fact that you did everything right. You graduated, you got a job, you work hard, you can't afford a home.
Now, I'm going to be doing this a lot, I'm sorry. But just right off the hop there, it's so funny how he's trying to take that angle where it's like, you're stuck in your parents' basement. You did everything right. Meanwhile, in any other conservative like scenario or space, it's, well, it's your fault you got a useless degree.
Yeah.
It's your fault your degree wasn't good enough. It's your fault for all these choices that you made. All your choices are bad.
Yeah.
And it was a result of your individual choices that you are in this bad place.
Yeah.
And now suddenly, there's this shift in oh, well, this is something that was done to you only because it's politically convenient for them to say so. You know, they don't actually believe that because
then they would have to like point out that Ford did this.
Yeah.
And point out that they're not going to undo it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And we had many years of conservative leaders, both provincially and federally, that also failed to adequately address this.
Yeah.
And so, the lies continue.
This is obviously because housing costs have doubled under Justin Trudeau. Now 9 in 10 young people believe they'll never be able to afford a home.
Yes, we've been saying that for like long before, even before Justin Trudeau took office. This is something that Canadian millennials were strongly lamenting. So what was it that he just? Oh yeah, the picture of Trudeau. It's doubled under Trudeau. Like the way the way they phrase this is in like is Trudeau out to get you, and he's he's personally pocketing the cash himself, and it's like he isn't the one handing out these packaged corrupt gifts to developers and stuff like that, like you're seeing in the whole Greenbelt scandal,
and
which we'll get to in a moment.
And if he is, then string him up with the rest of them.
Yeah.
But so far as the evidence says he's not,
Yeah.
But I love how this is kind of like Clone High. Abe Lincoln has never gone on saying that he doesn't eat babies.
yeah.
Last year he said he was 15. This year he says it's 16.
Which is it, Abe?
Yeah.
This is not normal. This is not how Canada has always been. But it isn't entirely unprecedented. It happened only once before, back in the early 1980s, under the previous Trudeau, when interest rates went skyrocketing, forcing families like mine to actually leave their homes and find somewhere else to live. But in the years that followed, a solution came to those families. A solution that is as obvious as the day is long.
You'll laugh.
We built more homes. Homes like this one,
I swear
built in
on all things holy.
1988.
Yeah.
In that year, Canada built about 220,000 homes. Our population was a lot smaller back then, so we didn't need to build as much.
So just build more homes is the solution. And again, this was caused by Pierre.
Yeah.
So for some reason, somehow, ignoring all the histrionics that go behind that, like, what caused that big financial recession in the 1980s? It couldn't have possibly been.
It was obviously Trudeau Sr.
Yeah. It couldn't have possibly been, years of conservative economics leading up to it. That sort of thing. I have to admit, I'm not fully aware of the details on how Pierre Trudeau handled it, but I am fairly aware of what the economic trends of the 1980s were and why they turned that way. And it wasn't because of particularly moderate or to left-wing policy.
Well, you see, the theory is you put some homeowners into a pit.
That's a good theory, and then they'll only eat other homeowners after a while. So I'm sure we said this on the show before, like when we were talking about housing. Building more homes alone doesn't do it. Like, sure, you could make the argument that new homes need to be built. Sure. But that alone is not going to do it. And when you're talking about like these private luxury homes with the way the market currently is, and I say luxury homes in that they are a house standing alone on a plot of land, not multi-unit dwellings, not that sort of thing that would actually, plump up the numbers and give more people places to live. But anyway, continue.
But here's a startling fact. Canada only built about 220,000 homes last year. An even more incredible fact, we were building more houses per year 50 years ago than we are right now. This is a uniquely Canadian.
Well, yeah, because
that's a uniquely Canadian problem. Are you serious?
That's when, like, basically 50 years ago was like when all the suburbs went up. Like, there was a massive amount of expansion during that era, and it had a lot to do with, basically workers were paid very, very well, and they were very well compensated. And the market for buying these homes wasn't out of control and ridiculous. They were actually accessible. Had nothing to do so much with, the housing is just too expensive and out of our grasp, and that's why we couldn't get it. It was literally because we just need more of them and people can afford to buy them. So it was very much for a combination of economic factors that led to the rapid expansion of suburban areas in Canada and people actually being able to afford to buy them.
Yeah, and so this ignores a few points, one of which is that not everyone wants or needs to live in a standalone home. There's a lot of people for which this would be just excessive in terms of land use and also in personal use. Like, let's say that you're a pensioner. It's a lot to maintain a home on your own, right? And so that's why, a lot of folks, once they get to, are we still going to be able to say retirement age in 50 years? Like, is that still going to be a thing? I don't fucking know. I'm not going to retire. My retirement plan is die in the revolution.
Yeah.
Anyways, so
and a lot of people, when they get to the point where they retire and the kids leave the nest and that sort of thing, they're one of two things happens. They pass down that house to the next generation, or they sell it as their nest egg for retirement, and then live in a much, smaller, simpler, cheaper place.
Yeah. And then, that's so that's just one use case, but like literally saying build homes ignores like a massive swath of the population for whom living independently in a standalone home isn't really desirable or realistic.
And not to mention, like, when you're talking the infrastructure of it all, like,
I was about to touch on that.
you're going to depend on, like, who are we developing these areas for? Is it going to be requiring that you own a car? And that's going to be your primary means of travel. That's a huge expense now. The price of cars is out of control. What are you going to do about that?
Yeah, and not everyone can or wants to drive. And even if they did, just Canada building all these homes without taking into account the infrastructure to support people going in and out of these communities is, this has also gotten us to this place right now.
Yeah,
like how many years of like not having a nationalized transportation rail service, right? Like you and I have talked about it too, like the fact that we don't have high-speed rail between Montreal and the GTA is complete clown shoes.
Yeah, 90% of our population lives along that strip.
Yeah,
and there's nothing there.
Yeah, there's there's the Via Rail, but if they did things like even ensuring that they had extra, rail lines so that we're not just competing with CN Rail for those same tracks, so that we can actually run passenger trains when it makes sense to run passenger trains, as opposed to just running around the CN big movie thing schedule. God, sometimes... freight. There we go. Aside from working around CN's big freight schedule, and then we could, if we have control of those lines, then we can build the infrastructure to make them high speed, as opposed to again being throttled because we have to account for those big freight trains that go slower if they're carrying hundreds of billions of tons. I'm exaggerating, obviously.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, what we could do if we have control those lines and we can run trains to the size that makes sense, we could also add in like vehicle cars, right, where you can load up your vehicles onto the train and then take them with you to where you go.
Yeah,
because like there are services that do that, not in Canada, but they exist. We wouldn't be reinventing the wheel by any stretch of the imagination, and that's not even getting into just like fucking bus service. Look how many cities are defunding and underfunding and undercutting bus service.
Yeah. So like, how it's not a matter of just like building more of them. It's how are these people actually going to be able to buy them and afford to live in those areas? And those questions remain unanswered. This is just literally it works out to being a gift for the land developers and the investment class.
Well, and it's also, giving lip service to people who don't ask deeper questions.
Yeah.
They say that, like, I want to buy a house, I can't buy a house. And so this seemingly answers their very specific, narrow question.
Yeah.
But they don't take into consideration what are the other considerations and questions around that they should be asking. Like, where does everyone else live who isn't going to live in a house? Once they get that house, where's my doctor? Where's my grocery store? Where's the closest school?
Yeah.
Where's the closest sportsplex? Where's the closest anything of any value?
Yeah.
Like, you can't just put a whole bunch of houses up in the middle of no place and provide zero services around them. People need things even when they have a home.
Yeah. So it just seems like a very... Yeah, it's a lazy and slap chop solution and fails to answer any of these questions. But let's let them go on a minute. Let's be fair, right? Let's let them continue.
Problem. Canada has the fewest houses per capita of any country in the G7, even though we have the most land to build on. In fact, we have fewer houses per capita than we did when Justin Trudeau took office 8 years ago. This
Look,
is
just 'cause you
strange
speak slower
because
doesn't mean it's,
Canada has
like,
among the
valid
biggest
point.
supply of land of any country on Earth. We have only 4 people for every square kilometer.
That doesn't mean all the land is usable.
Well,
It
and
doesn't mean
also-
it's all in good places where people want to live, and again, have infrastructure, have ability to, remain connected to their loved ones.
Yeah, like I'm not
you know-
going to send Nana to the middle of the Yukon to a community that doesn't have roads.
Yeah, we have
Like-
so much land. You just look at all that frozen tundra we could
Yeah, just
build on.
ship Nana up to live with the polar bears.
Like, yeah, where are you talking about? Are you talking about, say, the green belt? The protected
Obviously,
farmlands that we're supposed to be,
Making
not
food
destroying?
on?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, there's so much open land.
Yeah, like
This compares to, for example, Japan, which
compares
has
it to
338
Japan.
people
Yeah,
for
okay,
each
because
kilometer.
the one
With
thing
all
about
that
Japan
land,
is that everyone lives in a separate house.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what Japan's known
yeah.
for,
Yes,
like, their
when you
little
look at
quaint-
that city that he showed in that
Yeah.
shot right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you see? What do you see?
kilometer. This compares
Yeah. Oh,
I
look,
see
look at that
standalone-
suburbia.
Yeah, I see individual family homes as far as the eye can see.
It's ridiculous. And it's, the comparison is so bonkers because you're
Yeah.
also like, oh, let's compare it to Japan, a country that we could fit 100 times over inside Ontario alone.
Yeah.
Like,
And what was that? Remind me. Does Japan have trains? No,
no,
I
that's
don't.
not something they're known for. at all.
No, I don't think that they're known for their
Yeah.
public infrastructure.
And,
no,
and even
yeah.
then, like, it's almost like they don't have enough trains because their population density, right? Like that, you see the people being packed on trains like sardines all
Yeah.
the time in Japan. So it's like, even though they have all this train infrastructure that you can plainly see in the background of the shot, it still isn't adequate enough to be comfortable for the population, right?
compares to, for example, Japan, which has 338
absurd
people for
comparison.
each kilometer. With all that land, we should be able to easily build affordable homes for anyone who wants to have one.
Okay,
and yet
so-
we have the fewest.
Who says affordable? So
Affordable
he says
according to
affordable.
whom?
Yeah, so anyone to afford. Okay, cool.
So how are you going to price control that?
Yeah, I am working minimum wage, the wage that the government sets, and I am anyone, right?
Yeah.
I'm anyone. I would like to purchase a home on minimum wage, please and thank you.
Is that possible?
Yes.
Is that
Hey,
a thing that we
Petey?
can do?
Yeah. Fuck.
houses of any country at all. Why is that? What is standing in the way? The answer,
I mean,
in a
where to
word,
begin?
is government. Government is standing in the way.
Government
my
is
God.
standing in the way.
Prevents builders from building homes.
All that
you
planning and housing
disingenuous
community,
little schmuck.
all that
Yeah.
stuff where people like asking the questions that we're asking, except
Yeah.
they have some authority to ask them, where they're like, yeah, what are you going to do about infrastructure? What are you going to do about basic amenities for these people in this area? What are you going to do to not only just build,
No.
but make this a sustainable community?
And on top of that, these fashy government bastards making us go through building inspections,
Yeah.
making sure that like everything's up to code.
Yeah. Oh, these nasty government red tape, making sure your house doesn't collapse after you move into it. Which, if you remember, some may remember about that development. This must have been about 15 or 20 years ago now.
You don't have to go back to that far. There's one under development in Niagara that collapsed recently.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And and this is why these building codes and regulations and government red tape exist. So we're
Kills the
not,
breeze.
selling homes to people where they're now trapped in mortgages and there's no recourse
Mm-hmm.
and their homes are shabby. I just remember it particularly happening in a development in Hamilton about 15 to 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it was even featured on the show Homes on Homes, where he tried to come in and save some of it. Like, and literally, like, if you had more than a few people in the living room, the whole living room floor
my
was starting
God.
to sink in. Like, it really, really bad.
Yeah.
But this is what happens when you slap chop throw this stuff up and say, we're going to get rid of the government that stands in the way of these developers, these good-hearted developers
Yeah.
who are just so generous. They just want to build homes for you. Why won't you let them?
Yeah, well, like in a similar vein, if we look to our libertarian paradise, Florida, that's high-rise building in I think it's Miami that collapsed. I think it was a year and a half, 2 years ago now.
Well, the glass windows or the whole glass facades of some of those Toronto skyscrapers.
Well, they tend to like spit themselves out. So that's hilarious. Yeah,
they're only designed to last for about like 10 years.
Yeah,
and these people got swindled into buying these condos without like knowing that this was going to be a cost. And it's that nasty government red tape standing in the way, not banks, investment groups, developers trying to quickly sell you a home that is going to bite you in the ass later.
Yeah. And I will repeat
at a jacked up price, no less.
Oh yeah. And I'll repeat this till I've run out of breath. Regulations were written in blood.
Yeah.
Like, they don't make regulations because it feels like a fun and inconvenient thing to do.
Then that's one of my biggest complaints when finally regulation comes in, is just it usually takes an organization by the citizenry, like people coming together to basically say, this is a huge problem. And they beat that drum for ages and ages and ages, and then people die, and they go, look, see, and then finally maybe the government does something about it, even though they do all the data collection, they do all the study, and they have the information right in front of them that says, hey, if you do this badly, it's going to go bad. And they go, well, people need homes now. People need homes now. Yeah. So we're going to ignore all of that and go for the temporary solution.
Well, speaking of which, that's bringing in temporary workers who don't know their rights as a worker and the right to
and they have less rights as workers as well.
Yeah, and so they can't necessarily refuse an unsafe workplace because they don't know they can. They don't have agency to leave a job that is unsafe. Like this is just. This entire thing is just built on the back of people who can be exploited, both in the building and in the end result buying of these shite buildings.
Regulations are written in blood, even when they don't have to be. You can see these problems coming from a mile away. You can predict them. You can even look at history and say, this is going to happen again. But no, let's get rid of that nasty government red tape.
According to a study by the C.D. Howe Institute, the cost of government bureaucracy,
I bet you it's
that is red tape,
tank.
Taxes, and other charges, is $1.3 million per home in the city of Vancouver, $350,000 per home in Toronto.
But where are those numbers coming from?
Yeah.
Right? Like, these sound like scary big numbers, but related to something. Why? Like, what is the cost? Why is the cost so high? Is that because the cost of the land itself is inflated and something needs to be done about that? Is that part of it? Is, there's a lot more questions to be asked there. Like, why is it so different from Toronto to Vancouver? What is the difference?
But also, like, what do those numbers mean exactly?
Yeah, like it's hard to relate them to something. You just says, "Oh, C.D. Howe says this," but like, and the big scary numbers on your screen. Yeah. But like, $1.3 million to what? Like, get approval to build a home? Like, here, let's go back a second.
Government,
scary. Yeah. C.D. Howe Institute: housing prices driven up by barriers to building in Canadian cities. Now, of course, barriers, government regulation, having to take more steps, of course, is going to cost money. But what also costs money is, your house collapsing, right? So what costs are you really talking about?
The cost of government bureaucracy, that is red tape, taxes,
red tape,
and other charges, is $1.3 million.
But includes other market dysfunctions drive a wedge between what it costs to build in the market price. Over the period 2011, a single detached home in Vancouver cost house buyers $1.3 million more than what it would physically cost to build in a market without barriers to supply. What barriers? What do you mean by barriers? What are these barriers?
Yeah.
And like, sure, maybe there is like a bit of inflated bureaucracy where things could be more efficient. Sure. But that doesn't mean that, you get rid of everything and it's going to be so much cheaper and better for everybody. Right?
Well, and also, like, he doesn't highlight the part that says, but includes other market dysfunctions.
Yeah. What do you mean by other market dysfunctions? What market dysfunctions are you talking about? And I can't help but to notice that when you're even citing the study, there's no like asterisk or anything up there that says, there's going to be a footnote on it later that explains what they mean there. It's just other market dysfunctions.
$1 million per home in the city of Vancouver. $350,000 per home in Toronto, and $212,000 in Regina. These costs block people from doing what they did in this neighborhood back in the 80s when we were able to find our home on this street. Back at that time, people were able to build, and we were able to build brand new neighborhoods like neighboring Evergreen, Silverado, and Somerset. These neighborhoods gave hope and opportunity to families that needed it most, families just like mine. Now, we can do that same thing again. We can restore the hope of home ownership by getting the government gatekeepers out of the way to build, build, build. How?
Yeah,
well,
so we could go a little bit further, and we can go back to Love Canal in 1953, because, we like to lionize that time in the past of when, men were men and men built homes and yada yada. Yep. And, with the lack of regulations, Love Canal was built on like a toxic waste dump. And then it had to be like abandoned when it started bubbling up from the cracks. So like, goodness, what possibly could have changed between the 80s and now? Potentially environmental regulations, potentially like, more stringent standards around where and how we build, so that we're not putting a bunch of houses into a flood, or not putting a bunch of houses into a floodplain.
Yeah,
it's like, just because that looks like a nice little stretch there doesn't mean that it necessarily should have a house on it. So I wonder.
But the more important thing here is not only like that the house exists, is that the market made it affordable. These houses were not inflated in their cost. Like, what? Explain to me. Even though it costs apparently $350,000 extra because of government bureaucracy to build a home in Toronto, then how does that justify the inflated costs of the existing homes that are already there?
Yeah, exactly. And like, so growing up, my generation, certainly, I saw it happen with my own eyes, where like the cost of houses just shot the fuck up because everyone considered them an investment. But then it didn't just stop with Canadians considering them an investment. Foreign buyers also.
We allowed a lot of foreign investment to buy up those
not
properties.
Not even just like foreign individuals, but also like corporations can buy single family homes, right? Like, you've got these buyers getting together and buying up like
and they're going to go, well, all these people need a place to live, right? So we're going to extract every dollar out of them. People need places to live. They don't have much of a choice in the matter. So what are we going to do to make sure we squeeze every dollar out of this? There is no appropriate regulation on how much developers and real estate corporations can yield in profit from a sale of a home. They just go, oh, market forces. So what are you going to do about the market forces? And you can't tell me just like building more homes is going to solve it, because under the same market forces, they can, again, just buy up those homes and rent them out to people, and now you're never going to own anything, and you're never going to have an investment yourself.
Yeah, right? And like, not even just an investment, just to have the stability that a home can provide and mean, right? Because you're not at the whims of a fucking landlord. Like, so having an entire generations who will no longer have access to the kind of stability to live someplace and be able to continue to live there for as long as they want, knowing they're going to be able to continue to afford to live there, it's just not going to be reality.
Not to mention, like, it's a bit of a bigger and deeper topic, but the entire concept that we have around interest rates and loans and the creation of money, right? Oh, we can't, we have to jack up interest rates in order to regulate how much people are borrowing, because every time you borrow from a bank, you're not borrowing money that already exists.
Mm-hmm.
It creates new money
Mm-hmm.
every time. So banks actually aren't really so much investing what they have in you under the belief that, you're going to pay off your debts. They have just free license to create new money and jack up inflation. So something has to be done there, that where these interest rates are for people getting mortgages are reasonable and affordable on that front, minus the market forces, right?
Mm-hmm.
But somebody has to have more of a stake in the game with how they're handling the money that they're giving out to people. You can't just sign out mortgages willy-nilly and hope that the system sustains itself. Look at 2008. Right, the market crash of 2008 in America, where so many bad mortgages were being handed out. The people the ownership class basically stopped paying it. Mm-hmm. A lot of the stuff started falling through. People who were renting from these owners now going, "What? But I've been paying my rent. What do you mean you're foreclosing on this house? What do you mean I can't live here anymore? I did my end of the bargain. It was everybody else that screwed it up." Mm-hmm. So there's so many layers to this that they're not addressing, that just simply building more homes doesn't solve. Mm-hmm. They're simply depending on people's sort of economy 101 and understanding of things. More supply. More supply means price go down.
Yeah.
That's what that means.
Well, like it's
right?
It's the same kind of kindergarten understanding of things as kindergarten comp of boys have a penis and girls have vagina.
It's like sure, supply and demand is an important aspect of how this economy works, of course, but there is
dot.
Yeah. But like when the supply is bought up by an ownership class and then put behind fake walls that prevent you from buying in.
Yeah. And when we're told the lie that business owners and corporations have the risk and therefore they're the only ones entitled to the spoils.
Yeah.
That just means that all the money siphons upwards.
Yeah.
Continuously, forever.
Yeah.
And there's nothing there to stop them. Like there's nothing there that right now with
important to note that Poilievre owns rental properties and owns quite a bit of stake in a real estate corporation in Alberta. So he personally would stand to benefit from this sort of action financially.
I don't buy the same thing as Jagmeet Singh's wife renting out her home in BC, in Vancouver.
It's not like she bought it for an investment. She's just not in Vancouver.
Yeah,
so
it's like
she already owns it.
So when we're talking about the landlord as a class as being a problem, the problem is not necessarily someone renting out their house that someone else, pays to stay there. The problem is extracting maximum wealth and just making sure that they, like dragons, hoard as much of that as possible. Right? Like, I'm not gonna
there's a greater argument to be had between your like small time landlords and big time landlords and where that's a problem. As far as a policy position is concerned, I don't think there should be any landlords. I think if what is it? Jagmeet Singh's wife owns this house and she's not going to be in it for whatever reason. The person that's renting it from her should be able to build equity in that property. They should become a part owner for the money that they're putting into it. Instead, that money just, again, flows upwards.
Yeah.
Doesn't come back down.
And I'm fine with that. And what I would be fine with is that if the, basically government took private owners out of the picture altogether.
Exactly.
I would be pretty fucking chill with that too.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that right now, as everything stands, I'm not fucking worried about her situation.
Yeah, but yeah, like for conservatives to point the finger and be like, but you, and it's just like, buddy, you own several properties and have shares in these corporations. Yeah. To point out her single home is just ridiculous, right? It's by comparison. Yeah. It doesn't matter what you think on an ideological level. If we're just talking pure relative shit here, they don't have a leg to stand on to even point the finger and say something like that.
Well, the federal government gives billions of dollars to our big cities for infrastructure. Right now, the Trudeau government...
People need that to live.
That's what governments are for.
That's literally like their whole thing is we take in your tax money and spend it on things that you need to make society function
collectively
and be convenient,
collectively we have more money together to pay for infrastructure. Yeah, that's the idea. Paying on
infrastructure. Like, it really shows where his mind on this is going, right? Like, just build the homes, and then the people who are suckered into buying these slap chop homes are. What are you going to do about infrastructure now? Well, it's your problem. You bought the house.
Yeah, literally.
What are you going to do about it?
Gives that money even to those cities that block home building, rewarding politicians for standing in the way of the builders that could provide you with a home. I'm going to change the deal. I'm going to make it so that cities are rewarded for getting out of the way and letting builders build. I'll require every big city increase building permits by 15% per year, or lose some of their federal grants. But those that exceed the 15% target will get...
that's going to apply to every city across the board, 15%, and if you don't do it, we're going to cut your funding?
Yeah, like, are we going to fund the staffing to actually go through? And, like, this isn't saying that, we're going to give them a goal. We're going to say that, you need to, regardless of how shoddy and unrealistic and stupid these proposals are, you need to approve them. No.
Yeah. Like no, it's literally just forcing, cutting through the government bureaucracy, but just basically forcing through a gift to these developers, because they're going to win. They're going to collect their money, and guess what? Because you can see it, and I'll get to Doug Ford's plan about this in a second, because it completely echoes everything Poilievre is saying here, and what they talk about incentivizing cities to get rid of these regulations.
Get a building bonus. I'll require every federally funded transit station be pre-zoned and permitted for high-density apartments all around, so that our youth and seniors can live right next to the bus or train. And we'll sell off 6,000 federal buildings that we can convert into affordable housing for people just like you. In other words, we'll launch construction and build communities just like this one was built in the 80s, giving my family the hope to start all over again after we lost our previous home. We can do this. We can build the homes that you need for your future. We need the government to get out of the way so that we can bring it home.
Okay, cool. So there's going to be housing that's on major transit lines, but it doesn't actually address transit to places that aren't already on the major transit lines.
Yeah.
Like, you realize that, just going from one
and like how many
is...
buildings you're talking about, like young people and seniors? Well, like there's only going to be more seniors, that's for sure. That number is only going to increase with time.
Is that like, are hospitals going to be built like right next to?
Yeah. Are you going to have adequate infrastructure? We're not just talking about pipes and roads
and
here.
Like, realistically, that only really applies to Toronto.
Yeah. Because, how many cities in this country have, like, a viable mass transit system? And as you can see in that shot, it was GO Trains. GO Trains is a Metrolinx provincial thing, So, yeah, and how many homes are you talking about for these people to be able to live in? Your focus seems to be on housing and building new housing. How much of a priority is that in terms of developing these sort of multi-unit apartment buildings and stuff like that? These questions go unanswered. Like, he just sort of tags it on at the end, like, oh, by the way, we're going to do this for the old and the young people.
Yeah, we're going to cram them into these places over here, and don't look behind the curtain.
And what are they going to do about green spaces where they live? Is there going to be parks? Is there going to be amenities that make it a community that's good to be in.
Is it going to be a food desert, or are they only going to have like a Whole Foods or a Farm Boy?
It's like, of course, in a campaign video, they're not going to get into like the nitty and gritty of the details here.
Sure, but like,
we ask these questions because we know they don't ever. Exactly.
Yeah.
This is why you push these buttons now, because like you should be asking these questions to yourself at home, and seeing how this goes, because historically this sort of idea doesn't really pan out too much.
Yeah.
And so how does the sort of how you say incentives for these cities work if they build the adequate amount of homes that this proposal says? Well, what is it? Gotta try and find the story on that. Yeah. So this is the Doug Ford thing here. When was this story from? August 21st. So yeah, just not that long ago, a week or two ago. Ontario to expand strong mayor powers to smaller cities, launches $1.2 billion home building incentive fund.
But only to smaller cities, because Hamilton and Toronto has mayors that he doesn't like.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that actually. The cities apparently, those larger cities already have this incentive going for them, apparently. Municipalities that meet housing targets can receive money from new fund to pay for infrastructure. So they're considering it, if you meet our targets, we'll consider giving you a bonus to build infrastructure. It's not infrastructure is needed and contingent upon this building. It's if you meet this target, then we'll give you money for the infrastructure. That seems like very bad planning, right? Because what happens if they fall a little bit short of the target? What are they going to do about infrastructure?
Well, I guess you'll just have to go fuck yourself.
Like, is it going to put a strain on the people living there in a whole different way? And mind you, this is all your tax money anyway, right? Like, the money he's giving away isn't like, magic money tree stuff. It's government money that you have invested in. No. And it should be going towards infrastructure for new builds regardless. But that's what they're talking about in terms of getting rid of this government red tape and getting rid of the bureaucracy. Because what does strong mayor powers mean as well, right? What does that get into? The government will extend so-called strong mayor powers to almost 24 smaller cities in launching $1.2 billion fund to reward municipalities that meet provincially mandated home building targets. Now, in terms of how many homes they're trying to build and where they want to build them, I have some questions about the $1.2 billion number, because for the number of homes they're talking about and the number of communities you want to develop, and that kind of infrastructure is very expensive, is $1.2 billion even enough? That actually, it sounds like
it's
a small number.
a home.
That sounds like a really small number, and shit costs more than that. So what are you talking about? How is this supposed to be more efficient? We're actually going to cut the amount of money we give you in infrastructure under the idea that it's a bonus that you give us these new targets. No, to be honest, I don't know how accurate I'm being in that statement, but I do question these values that they're putting out there.
It's a theory.
It's a theory. That means I can speak on it with authority.
Yeah, that means that you can totally not preface it. You can just keep talking.
Yeah. Speaking at the annual conference of the Associated Municipalities in Ontario, said the measures will help towns and cities meet the provincial's goal of building 1.5 million homes by 2031. So 1.5 million homes, $1.2 billion. Yeah, that sounds about $100 per home. Does it only cost $100 to lay natural gas and sewage and all these things? Yeah, the 1.2. It will not go far. Exactly. There's no way it could go far.
Yeah,
right?
if that's potentially per community, per year, per something, but just given that's a flat out number.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It just doesn't seem like enough to me. Maybe there's something I'm missing. It's just a theory, right? But yeah, the what is it? Was it it gets into, I want to try and find the part where, this is where it explains what strong mayoral powers are. Get that up in the middle of the screen here. Strong mayoral powers include allowing mayors to propose housing-related bylaws and pass them without the support of 1/3 of councillors.
No, with only support.
Or with only support. Yeah, like basically without support of 2/3 of councillors, which would be the typical way of doing things. The democratic way of doing things, if you will, as well as override council approval of certain bylaws and prepare their city budget instead of council. So if you have a ward where you have an elected councillor representing that ward, and the people in that community say to their councillor, we don't want that development going here because it's going to hurt us for X, Y, and Z reasons. We are supposed to have regulations against this. Where's our protection for the place we're already living, right? And they're going to go, and the mayor is going to have the ability to go, no. We're meeting those targets. Build it, and completely override them. Screw you to the people in that community, potentially. These are the problems you can already see on the horizon, because these are the arguments that cities already have, right? So if you're just giving one person the ability to override those arguments and shut down that debate, sure, you're cutting through the bureaucracy, but at the expense of what? And so, the new powers were first granted to Toronto and Ottawa in December of 2022. Luckily, we got Olivia Chow in Toronto now, so I would trust that she's going to be a little more stable with this thinking than, say, somebody like John Tory. There we go. I almost already forgot him. Thank goodness. But shouldn't forget him, actually, for the sake of learning from history. I would trust her to be a lot more sensible than John Tory, given these so-called new powers. And the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Steve Clark, the guy that just resigned.
He only resigned from that cabinet position. He's still an MP.
He's still MP.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess, still MP. I can sort of see that. But yeah, he should absolutely resign from that position. But that should not be a replacement for him taking replacement for him taking accountability on the Greenbelt deal. It's a further sign that the Greenbelt deal should just not go through. Period.
Yeah.
End it. Stop
Return
it.
the land.
Return the land.
Yeah.
Just scrap this deal. It's not too late.
Yeah.
But they want to steamroll over that for the sake of meeting these housing targets. And look at all these great houses we're going to build. But again, how good are these houses? How accessible are they?
No.
In every way, shape, and form, how accessible are they? But anyway, the total number of Ontario municipalities with access to strong mayor powers now is 49. Newmarket was denied the powers despite being assigned a housing target because the town hasn't committed to achieving its target of 12,000 homes by 2031. And again, like I'm assuming when they say homes in that context, they're talking about single-unit suburban dwellings, right? Is that the idea? I don't know.
I haven't heard the theory. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I hardly find any information that really gets in the strong nitty gritty of that. But
That's
anything I've
probably on
seen
purpose.
it's probably by design. Yeah, because for example, that new condo building that went up where Honest Ed's was in Toronto, and it's like, sure, it was an old building and some kitschy store. Sure, it was a Toronto landmark, but if you're saying we want to use this land for smarter reasons to build homes, places for people to live, and we're going to make this big condo building. Condos are very inefficient in terms of, providing adequate amount of housing within a small area. Again, you're going to give it to the investor class. There's going to be all that sort of stuff wrapped up in it. And not to mention the questions that I raised earlier about, how are those buildings going to hold up over time? But not only that, they said, oh, this is good because a certain number of units in this building is going to be reserved for affordable housing. Well, how many? And
what does that mean?
And what does that mean? How affordable?
Affordable to who?
How
metric?
affordable is it?
Yeah.
And but I remember, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head now, but I remember seeing like this condo and this development and them trying to brag about the number of affordable units it's going to bring. And it was something like a dozen. And it's just like, 12 affordable units. Well, we're well on our way. We're well on our way to solving all our problems, aren't we? 12. You know, make the entire building affordable housing.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too with Poilievre saying that he wants to sell 6,000 government buildings for private companies to retrofit them. The government should retrofit them because then we take the profit out.
Yeah.
Right?
That money that's being used, should be our money. It's our investment.
Yeah.
Should go back into the government, not back into private business.
Yeah,
but that's what this is all about. It's about between both Poilievre and Ford is giving this gift to development corporations and real estate corporations and the investor class.
Yeah.
They are all going to benefit from this. Sure, you might get a home out of it, but it's going to be not any more affordable than what you're currently experiencing, you know, but they're going to make a shit ton of money.
Yeah, like the 407, like selling government assets for a short boost to the budget to ensure that long term that money isn't going into government coffers to maintain the buildings, maintain their infrastructure around it, and then grow everything around it.
And for, you know, all those people in your more remote areas who also need infrastructure, you know, like, you know, for a lot of people who are powering powering their heaters in the winter because they don't have access to natural gas and that sort of thing. What about their amenities? What about their costs? Those people already exist and are living there.
Well,
they could use a boost in infrastructure as well.
Well,
right?
and also, like, you can't just build a road and just build a hospital and just build a water treatment plant and then never go back to it ever again.
Yeah,
you need
these things
to
require maintenance, and not only maintenance, but improvement.
Yeah.
You need to upgrade this stuff. It doesn't just stay the same. And like, you know, as far as especially when you're talking like more localized government, like municipalities or even provinces as opposed to federal, it's always sexier to build the new bridge and be the one to build the bridge rather than maintain the one you have, even if it's more cost effective to maintain the one you have.
Yeah, well, because like the governments are just ruling 4 years at a time.
Yeah, 407 all over again, like you say, Joe.
Literally,
Yeah,
like
that's what it is.
Government cannot rule 4 years at a time. I'm not saying that governments should like stay the same. I'm saying that if you only think a maximum of 4 years ahead, nothing can ever get done.
Yeah, there has to be stuff that's codified and solidified that the next government just can't come in and take a wrecking ball to it, like Doug Ford has with so much of the good groundwork that Kathleen Wynne left. I have a lot of beef with Kathleen Wynne, but there's a lot of good things that she had set up and had set up for either herself, if elected again, to experience the success of, or whoever the next government coming in can enjoy the success of that. Like such as, you know, development into infrastructure for electric cars and green energy. All that was scrapped, and that cost millions of dollars to scrap that project. Money just gone into the ether because Doug Ford didn't want to expand on it and didn't want to continue the project. And not to mention him canceling minimum wage increase that was scheduled and that sort of thing.
And canceling the UBI.
The UBI pilot project. Yeah, that was proving to be a success.
They don't want proof. They don't want proof in Canada that treating people with dignity works.
Yeah. Basically, that's the sort of long and short of it. So anyway, I wanted to touch on labor really quick before we punched out, because we're already slightly over time than what we normally do. We usually keep the show to about an hour, but we were rolling with it there. We were on a good roll. So yeah, I just wanted to point out, like, it's funny seeing this sort of data about polls and how people feel about things, because it's very telling in a lot of ways. Like, you know, you're seeing it right now with a lot of kind of the discourse around Joe Biden and how he is the most pro-union president of our lifetime. And I wouldn't put it that way. I would put it more like he is the least anti-union. He has done less to impede unions, even though he shut down a strike of the rail workers and stuff like that. Even then, he has been less of a thorn in the unions, but I wouldn't say he's particularly pro union. I just haven't seen the evidence that supports that personally. But not only that, the economy. Oh, look, line go up. Economy's better. The economy's better in America than it was a couple years ago under Trump. And this is thanks to things that Joe Biden has done. And then you have swaths of people going, but what do you mean it's gotten better? For who? I'm not feeling that. Are you feeling that? And like everybody's just sort of looking at each other like, and then you have like this sort of Dem establishment simps who are like, line go up. He's doing a good job. It doesn't matter that nobody's feeling it. You know, the data says it's good. But so comparing that to this, where it says, this is a poll conducted by, sorry, I'm losing my words here. Angus Reid Institute, Canada's nonprofit foundation committed to independent research. How independent that research is, but it seems like from what I was reading when I was going through this, that it was a fairly, there's a lot of data here. There's a lot to sink your teeth into. But I wanted to point out this one particular highlighted part here. As of 2022, 29% of Canadians were in a union, a decline from the level of 38% in 1981. And we all know the Reaganomics of the 80s that went to Canada as well. We all know how that went down in the depowering of the labor class. However, the rate of unionization is stable when compared to a decade ago. So, it's stable. When Canadians are split as to whether the influence of unions has grown, shrank, or stagnated in the past decade. Some people are saying, oh, the power of unions is going way up and it's great, or it's gone way up and it's bad. I guess that depends on your perspective, but some people say it has gone up, some people say it hasn't. And so that says to me that we're not making a bold enough effort to say it has gone up. If people can still question whether I don't know. I don't really feel like union has gone up. And you could say, well, the data on the chart says it's gone up. And if you have swaths of people going, I don't really notice that, I don't really feel that, I would still consider that something of a failure, because if people don't know about the benefits that are available to them, people don't know about the increase in their rights or their opportunities, then what good is it? So it was like, oh, this is just how people feel. You can't make decisions based on how people feel. Well, if a lot of people are feeling the same way, maybe there is something to that, right? Whether it's fact-based or not, their gripe, they still have a gripe. Yeah. It's like people, the convoy thing, where they're like, we are, feeling constrained. We're not making enough money. The working class is getting punched down. We're truckers. We're working class. Their gripe is legitimate. It's where they think all their problems are coming from, and the facts of it that are a little less legitimate. Yeah. So when you have this much of a disparity in fact and then what people are feeling in their day-to-day lives, that's still a failure. Right? There's still that still says that there's a lot of work to be done, because it doesn't, if I'm not feeling the benefit of stronger union presence, if I'm not feeling the benefit of a stronger economy, then what good is it? And yeah, that was kind of my thing on that.
Cool.
Do you have any thoughts to share?
No, I'm tired.
Yeah, Nat's reached the end of her tether. Yeah. It's been a long day. We've had a lot of work on our plates because here, I'm going to put this on, play us out. Yeah, we have a lot coming up on the horizon. We're working on a music video for the Rough Go. Hopefully that is not far away. I'm sweating a little bit about meeting certain deadlines and stuff like that, but lots of stuff with the Rough Go coming down the pipeline. I don't know when we're going to get to doing another episode. Hopefully we'll get to doing one the next week, but yeah, we've been working all day on stuff here on Labor Day. This wasn't really a day off for us. We've been just plugging away. So yeah, stay tuned for lots of exciting news on the Rough Go front, and we will make an announcement when our next episode is happening soon. Yeah, I hope it was well said, Joe. I feel like I was a little messy in my explanation there. I should have rehearsed it more. But thank you.